Good morning, it's Richard Morris from Morris Succession Lawyers. I'm down here this morning at the beautiful Lake Catawai foreshore just south of Port Macquarie. I thought I'd have a quick word today about the unlawful murder or unlawful killing of someone and how that interplays with succession law. So there's a long-running case law or common law rule against benefiting from the murder of someone, whereby basically if you are convicted of killing someone, usually by form of murder, not manslaughter, then there would be a law or a rule against you inheriting anything from that person's estate. Now, that was the case for a long time, but the legislature in New South Wales varied that absolute rule back in the mid-90s, bringing in the Forfeiture Act. And basically the Forfeiture Act allows for there to be a modification of the rule, whereby there's a little bit more grey area or nuance, whereby if the circumstances warrant there being a modification, there's allowance for someone who unlawfully killed or whose actions resulted in the death of someone from still receiving a benefit from that estate. Now, most of the cases that have happened since that time have basically supported the proposition that if you murder someone, then you cannot benefit from their estate. And some people may remember the Seth Gonzalez murders in the, I think it was in the early 2000s, whereby the son murdered his whole family, and he was motivated by greed in the sense that he really wanted to basically take all of the money that his parents had, and there was a long-running dispute that resulted in the courts between him and his, from memory, his uncle, about whether or not he should receive anything from that estate. And ultimately he failed in his application to receive any benefit, and he wasn't able to inherit anything from either of his parents or his sibling. But there are more nuanced examples. There's been a number of cases, for instance, where a husband was driving a car, he's lost control of the vehicle, resulting in his wife's death and the death of his children. And those cases have allowed for the husband, where it's been purely accidental, even though he was convicted of negligent driving resulting in death or a similar manslaughter type charge, there's still, the courts were happy to modify the rule against someone inheriting to allow the husband to actually still inherit the whole of the estate. And those cases seem to support the proposition that if it's not intentional and it's merely by accident, then even though there's a conviction resulting in basically a finding that the person killed that relative or that other person, then they can still receive a benefit from their estate. So that's the law of succession in terms of how it interrelates with criminal charges. So it really depends on the criminal charge in question and the facts surrounding the particular case as to whether the court's going to be happy to modify that rule. There doesn't appear to be any cases that didn't involve a criminal conviction, although I should say that's not a specific requirement under the legislation. So whereas in a criminal court you have a finding beyond reasonable doubt, so there's a different standard. It's at the very top in terms of the standard that must be found that there's no reasonable doubt that the person killed the victim. In these forfeiture cases, it's a civil standard, so it's a balance of probabilities. So what's more likely to have been what's more likely to have killed the person? Was it more likely to have been the perpetrator, or was it more likely to have been some other cause? So it's a distinction. You still, when you're dealing with succession, it's a civil standard, so it is only on the balance of probabilities what's more likely to have been the case. It's not beyond reasonable doubt in the sense that it's the same as a criminal standard. Now, people are probably familiar with O.J. Simpson, for instance, who was found not guilty or acquitted of killing his ex-partner, but he was still found civilly responsible and had to pay damages to her family. So it's a similar sort of legal test in regard to forfeiture, in the sense that it's not a criminal standard, but it's a balance of probabilities. So that's basically the law or a tidbit on that particular aspect of succession law. So if you have any queries at all, or any questions on succession law, then please feel free to contact me or the team at Morris Succession Lawyers.